Your brain is lying to you every single morning. The moment you wake up, it floods you with the same exhausting thoughts that kept you stuck yesterday, last week, and last year. You reach for your phone, scroll through the same feeds, and wonder why you feel drained before your day even starts. Here's what nobody tells you about morning fatigue and that heavy feeling of being unmotivated. It's not because you didn't sleep enough or because you're lazy. It's because you're letting your mind run the same program on repeat without ever hitting the reset button. What I'm about to share with you is a simple morning ritual that rewires your brain's default setting from survival mode to thriving mode. This isn't about forcing yourself to be positive or pretending everything is perfect. This is about giving your mind the clean slate it desperately needs to function at its highest level. In the next few minutes, you'll learn a meditation script that takes less than 10 minutes but changes how you show up for your entire day. You'll discover why most people wake up tired even after 8 hours of sleep and how to break that cycle starting tomorrow morning. Mental archaeology technique. There's something happening in your mind right now that you're completely unaware of. While you were sleeping last night, your brain didn't file away yesterday's experiences like it was supposed to. Instead, those unfinished thoughts, that awkward conversation, that work stress, and that nagging worry about your future are all still floating around in your subconscious, like invisible fog. This mental debris is the real reason you wake up feeling heavy, before your feet even hit the floor. Most people think morning tiredness comes from not getting enough sleep. But here's what sleep researchers won't tell you. Your brain can rest for 8 hours and still feel cluttered because emotional residue from previous days builds up like dirty dishes in a sink. You can't see these mental leftovers, but they're consuming your energy before you even start your day. Think about your computer when it has too many programs running in the background. It slows down, freezes, and eventually crashes. Your mind works exactly the same way. Those unprocessed thoughts from yesterday, last week, and even last month are all running background programs that drain your mental battery. Here's what makes this even worse. Every morning, you add today's fresh thoughts on top of yesterday's uncleared mental junk. It's like trying to cook a meal in a kitchen full of dirty dishes. You end up exhausted before you even begin because you're working with contaminated mental space. But there's something powerful you can do about this that takes less than 2 minutes. I call it mental archaeology because you're literally going to dig up and remove the emotional artifacts that are cluttering your inner landscape. Most people try to ignore these background thoughts or push them away with positive thinking. This is like trying to clean your house by throwing the blanket over the mess. The clutter is still there, just hidden. What you need is a systematic way to excavate these mental remnants and clear them out completely. This technique works because it addresses the root cause of morning mental fog. Instead of treating the symptoms with caffeine or motivation tricks, you're actually cleaning the operating system of your mind. When you remove the debris, your natural energy and clarity return automatically. The ancient practitioners understood something modern psychology is just beginning to discover. Your mind needs a daily reset ritual, just like your body needs daily hygiene. You wouldn't skip brushing your teeth for weeks, but most people never clean their mental space at all. Here's the breakthrough that changes everything. Your breath is the most powerful archaeological tool you possess. Each exhale can carry away mental residue that's been weighing you down. Each inhale can bring in fresh clarity and space. This isn't about meditation or mindfulness in the traditional sense. This is mental housekeeping. You're about to learn a 3-breath technique that excavates layers of accumulated psychological debris in under 90 seconds. When you master this practice, you'll notice something remarkable happens. That heavy feeling that usually drags you down disappears. Your mind feels lighter, clearer, and more spacious. You'll finally understand what it feels like to start your day with a clean mental slate. The technique I'm about to share with you has been tested by thousands of people who struggled with morning fatigue and lack of motivation. Within 1 week of consistent practice, they reported feeling more energized, focused, and emotionally balanced throughout their entire day. So here's technique number 1, out of 10 powerful practices that will transform your mornings. The mental archaeology technique works by using your breath to systematically clear away yesterday's emotional leftovers. Take your first breath to acknowledge what's been weighing on your mind. Take your second breath to gently lift that burden away from your consciousness. Take your third breath to seal in the clean, clear space you've just created. In just 3 conscious breaths, you've excavated days or even weeks of accumulated mental clutter. Emotional weather report. Right now, there's an invisible storm system moving through your emotional landscape, and you have no idea it's coming. Just like meteorologists track weather patterns to predict storms, your emotions follow predictable patterns that determine whether your day will be sunny and productive or cloudy and chaotic. But here's the problem. Most people stumble blindly into their day without checking their internal emotional forecast. You wouldn't leave your house without knowing if it's going to rain. Yet you navigate your entire day without understanding your emotional climate. This is why you get blindsided by sudden mood crashes, unexpected anxiety spikes, or waves of motivation that disappear as quickly as they came. You're living emotionally unprepared. Think about the last time you had a terrible day that seemed to come out of nowhere. Looking back, there were probably warning signs. Maybe you felt slightly irritated when you woke up, or there was a subtle heaviness in your chest, or your thoughts felt a bit scattered. These weren't random occurrences. They were your emotional weather indicators trying to give you advance warning. Your emotions operate like atmospheric pressure systems. High pressure brings clarity, energy, and focus. Low pressure brings mental fog, lethargy, and scattered thinking. Mixed pressure creates those unpredictable emotional storms that knock you off balance when you least expect it. The most successful people you know aren't emotionally lucky, they're emotionally prepared. They've learned to read their internal weather patterns and adjust their day accordingly. When they sense an emotional storm approaching, they take shelter. When they feel high pressure building, they maximize their productivity. Here's what most people get wrong about emotions. They think emotions just happen to them, randomly, like getting struck by lightning. But emotions are actually predictable weather systems that you can learn to forecast with remarkable accuracy. Once you know how to read the signs, you'll never be caught in an emotional storm without an umbrella again. Your body is constantly broadcasting your emotional weather report through subtle signals. A tight jaw might indicate rising stress pressure. Heavy eyelids could signal an approaching energy low front. Restless hands might mean excitement. High pressure is building. But you've never been taught to read your own emotional barometer. This creates a dangerous cycle. You start your day emotionally blind, get hit by unexpected emotional weather, and then spend the rest of your day recovering from storms you could have seen coming. It's like being a sailor who never learned to read the sky before setting sail. But there's a simple practice that changes everything. In less than 2 minutes, you can become your own personal emotional meteorologist. You'll learn to detect emotional weather patterns before they fully develop, giving you the power to either prepare for them or redirect them entirely. The technique works because emotions, like weather, have early warning systems built into them. Your body starts preparing for emotional changes long before your conscious mind recognizes them. When you learn to tune into these early signals, you gain precious time to respond instead of just react. Professional athletes use this principle all the time. They check their mental and emotional state before competing because they know that internal weather determines external performance. A tennis player who senses rising anxiety can adjust their breathing and strategy. A runner who feels a low energy can modify their pacing plan. This isn't about controlling your emotions or forcing yourself to feel different. It's about emotional intelligence and strategic awareness. When you know an emotional storm is coming, you can choose how to navigate it. When you feel high pressure building, you can channel that energy productively. Here's technique number 2 out of 10 that will revolutionize your mornings: the emotional weather report. Practice starts with placing one hand on your chest and one on your stomach. Close your eyes and take a slow breath while scanning your internal landscape. Ask yourself what emotional weather you're experiencing right now. Is there tension gathering like storm clouds? Do you feel the clear skies of calm energy? Are there mixed conditions that need your attention? In just 2 minutes of honest emotional meteorology, you'll know exactly how to dress for your day's emotional climate. Identity refresh ritual. Every morning, you make a choice that determines your entire day, but you make it unconsciously, without even realizing it. The moment you wake up, you decide who you're going to be today. But here's the problem. Most people don't choose. They just default to being yesterday's version of themselves, complete with yesterday's limitations, yesterday's habits, and yesterday's problems. You wake up and immediately slip into the same mental patterns, the same emotional responses, and the same behavioral loops that kept you stuck yesterday. It's like putting on yesterday's dirty clothes every morning instead of choosing fresh ones. You're carrying forward an outdated version of yourself that no longer serves who you're becoming. Think about this for a moment. The person who went to bed last night was dealing with specific challenges, carrying certain worries, and operating from a particular level of energy and awareness. But you're not that person anymore. You've had hours of rest, your brain has processed information, and you've literally been renewed at a cellular level. Yet the first thing you do is resurrect yesterday's identity. This is why you feel stuck in repetitive cycles. This is why the same problems keep showing up in your life. This is why motivation feels so hard to maintain. You're not giving yourself permission to evolve beyond who you were yesterday. You're living as an outdated version of yourself. Your identity isn't fixed like your fingerprints. It's fluid like water, and it reshapes itself based on the choices you make each moment. But most people treat their identity like it's carved in stone. They wake up thinking they have to be the same person who struggled yesterday, who felt overwhelmed last week, who lacked confidence last month. Here's what neuroscience reveals about identity. Your brain creates your sense of self through repeated thought patterns and behaviors. Every morning you have a fresh opportunity to reinforce the identity you want, or accidentally strengthen the identity you're trying to change. Most people accidentally choose the old version out of habit. The most successful people understand something that average people miss. They don't just set goals for what they want to achieve. They consciously choose who they want to be each day. They understand that identity drives behavior, and behavior creates results. Change your identity, and your actions change automatically. But here's where most people get confused. They think identity change has to be this massive, dramatic transformation that takes years. They don't realize you can refresh your identity every single morning in less than 60 seconds. You can literally choose to upgrade who you are before your day begins. This isn't about pretending to be someone you're not or putting on a fake personality. This is about consciously selecting which aspects of your authentic self you want to emphasize today. You contain multitudes. You have confident moments and uncertain moments, motivated days and lazy days, focused times and scattered times. The question is, which version are you going to activate? Most people let circumstances decide who they become each day. They wake up, check their problems, and become the version of themselves that matches those problems. But you can flip this script completely. You can decide who you want to be first, and then approach your day from that elevated identity. Your mirror holds the key to this transformation. is not just a surface that reflects your physical appearance. It's a portal to conscious identity selection. When you look in that mirror each morning, you're not just seeing who you are, you're choosing who you're becoming. Here's technique number 3 out of 10 that will transform your daily experience. The identity refresh ritual begins when you look directly into your own eyes in the mirror each morning. Instead of judging what you see or rushing past this moment, pause and ask yourself one powerful question. Who do I choose to be today? Then consciously step into that version of yourself. Feel how they stand, breathe how they breathe, and carry yourself with their energy. You're not pretending. You're selecting which facet of your authentic self gets to shine today. Energy investment portfolio. Right now, you're making financial decisions with your most valuable currency, and you don't even realize it. Every morning you wake up with a finite amount of mental and emotional energy, but you spend it like someone who doesn't track their bank account. You give your best energy to whatever demands your attention first, leaving scraps for what matters most. Think about how carefully you manage your money. You budget, you save, you invest strategically. You wouldn't randomly throw cash at every opportunity that comes your way. But that's exactly what you do with your daily energy. You hand it out freely to emails, social media, other people's priorities, and urgent but unimportant tasks until you're broke by noon. Your energy is more valuable than money because you can always make more money. But you can never make more time or manufacture more daily energy. Once it's spent, it's gone. Yet most people treat their energy like it's an unlimited resource that magically refills itself throughout the day. Here's what energy research reveals. You start each day with approximately 4 to 6 hours of peak cognitive energy. This is your prime time, your golden hours, your most valuable mental currency. But where does this precious energy actually go? Most people spend their cognitive gold coins on checking messages, scrolling feeds, and reacting to other people's agendas. It's like being given $1,000 every morning and immediately spending 800 of it on junk food and impulse purchases. By the time you want to invest in something meaningful, you're operating with pocket change. This is why you feel mentally exhausted even when you haven't accomplished anything significant. The most productive people understand something that average people completely miss. They treat their daily energy like a portfolio manager treats investment capital. They allocate their mental resources intentionally before the market opens. They decide in advance where their cognitive currency will generate the highest returns. But here's where most productivity advice gets it wrong. They tell you to make lists and set priorities, but they never address the fundamental issue of energy allocation. You can have the perfect task list, but if you've already spent your best energy on mental junk food, you'll execute everything from a depleted state. Your brain operates like a sophisticated investment algorithm, but you've never learned to program it intentionally. Every morning, your mind automatically allocates energy based on whatever captures your attention first. This is like letting a random number generator manage your retirement fund. The results are predictably chaotic. Professional athletes understand energy investment better than anyone. They don't just show up and hope they have enough energy to perform. They strategically preserve and allocate their physical and mental resources for maximum performance when it matters most. They protect their energy like a precious commodity. Your morning energy allocation determines your entire day's return on investment. Spend your cognitive capital on reactive activities, and you'll get reactive results. Invest your mental energy in creative and strategic thinking, and you'll generate breakthrough solutions and meaningful progress. The secret is creating what I call an energy investment portfolio. Just like financial diversification, you need to consciously distribute your daily energy across different categories: deep work, relationships, health, learning, and recovery. Without intentional allocation, all your energy flows to whatever screams loudest for attention. This isn't about rigid scheduling or obsessive planning. It's about conscious energy stewardship. Before life starts making demands on your attention, you decide where your cognitive currency will generate the most meaningful returns. You become the CEO of your own mental energy company. Here's technique number 4 out of 10 that will revolutionize your productivity and fulfillment. The energy investment portfolio method starts before you check any devices or engage with external demands. Take 60 seconds to consciously allocate your day's energy. Ask yourself, what deserves my premium cognitive energy today? What can operate on my standard energy? What should get only my leftover energy? Then protect your high-value energy investments like a skilled portfolio manager protecting their best-performing assets. Future self-check-in. There's a version of you that already exists who has solved every challenge you're going to face today. This isn't some mystical concept or wishful thinking. This is your future self who has already navigated today's obstacles, learned from today's experiences, and discovered today's solutions. But here's the problem. You never think to ask this wiser version of yourself for advice. Most people approach their day like they're walking into a dark room without turning on the lights. They stumble around, bumping into problems, making the same mistakes, and learning lessons the hard way. But you have access to someone who has already walked through that room, mapped out all the obstacles, and found the best path forward. That someone is you, just hours ahead. Think about this logically. Right now, there's a version of you that exists 12 hours from now who has already lived through today. They've dealt with today's challenges, navigated today's conversations, and handled today's decisions. They have information you don't have yet. They have perspective you haven't gained yet. They have solutions you haven't discovered yet. Your future self is the most reliable advisor you'll ever have because they share your values, understand your situation completely, and have your best interests at heart. They're not giving advice from the outside looking in. They're sharing wisdom from the inside looking back. Yet most people never think to consult this incredible resource. Here's what neuroscience tells us about your relationship with your future self. Your brain can actually simulate future experiences and download insights from imagined scenarios. This isn't fantasy or visualization. This is your mind's natural ability to process potential outcomes and extract useful information before those outcomes actually occur. Professional decision-makers use this principle instinctively. Before making important choices, they mentally fast forward to see themselves dealing with the consequences. They ask themselves, how will I feel about this decision tomorrow, next week, next year? They're consulting their future self for guidance. But most people only use this ability for worry and anxiety. They imagine negative future scenarios and download stress instead of wisdom. They connect with the version of themselves that's struggling instead of the version that's thriving. This backwards approach keeps them stuck in problems instead of moving towards solutions. Your future self has already figured out how to handle that difficult conversation you're dreading. They've already discovered the creative solution to that problem that seems impossible right now. They've already found the energy and motivation you feel like you're lacking. All you have to do is connect with them and ask for their insights. This isn't about positive thinking or pretending problems don't exist. This is about accessing the part of your intelligence that operates beyond your current limitations. Your future self has processed more information, gained more perspective, and developed more capabilities than your current self possesses. The most successful people in any field share one common trait. They regularly check in with their future selves before making decisions or taking action. They understand that their current perspective is limited by their current circumstances, but their future perspective will be expanded by experience and wisdom. Here's the breakthrough that changes everything. You don't have to wait to become your future self to access their wisdom. You can connect with them right now through a simple 30-second visualization technique that downloads their insights directly into your current awareness. This practice works because your mind doesn't distinguish between vividly imagined experiences and actual experiences when it comes to extracting useful information. When you connect with your future self, you're not just fantasizing, you're accessing your own expanded intelligence. Here's technique number 5 out of 10 that will give you supernatural clarity and confidence. The future self check-in technique. starts with closing your eyes and mentally fast-forwarding to the end of today. See yourself successfully navigating through all of today's activities. Now, ask this future version of yourself, what do I need to know to make today incredible? What should I focus on? What should I avoid? What opportunity should I watch for? In 30 seconds of future self-consultation, you'll download more practical wisdom than hours of overthinking could ever provide. Gratitude archaeology. You're living surrounded by invisible treasure, but you've become blind to its existence. Every single day, you're experiencing dozens of small miracles, conveniences, and blessings that you've trained yourself not to notice. This isn't about being ungrateful. This is about something psychologists call adaptation blindness. You've adapted so completely to the good things in your life that they've become invisible background noise. Think about the miracle of turning on a faucet and having clean water appear instantly. Consider the wonder of flipping a switch and having light flood a room. Contemplate the magic of pressing buttons on a device and connecting with someone thousands of miles away. These aren't ordinary events. They're extraordinary phenomena that you've learned to take for granted. Your brain is designed to notice problems, threats, and what's missing because this kept your ancestors alive. But in modern life, this problem detection system works against your happiness and energy. You scan your environment looking for what's wrong, what's lacking, and what needs to be fixed, while completely overlooking what's working, what's abundant, and what's beautiful. This creates what researchers call appreciation deficit disorder. You're living in a state of perceived scarcity because you've lost the ability to recognize actual abundance. It's like being surrounded by food, but convinced you're starving because you can only see the empty plates. Most gratitude practices try to solve this by forcing you to list things you're grateful for. But this approach often feels artificial and doesn't create lasting change because you're working against your brain's natural tendency to adapt to positive experiences. You need a different approach that works with your psychology instead of against it. Here's what makes traditional gratitude lists ineffective. Your brain processes familiar positive experiences as neutral background information. When you repeatedly focus on the same things you're grateful for, they lose their emotional impact. It's like listening to your favorite song over and over until it becomes just noise. But there's a more powerful approach that neuroscientists are just beginning to understand. Instead of trying to manufacture gratitude for things you already acknowledge, you can excavate appreciation for things you've forgotten to notice. This is gratitude archaeology. You're digging up buried treasures of experience that have been hiding in plain sight. Your life is filled with what researchers call hedonic adaptation blind spots. These are positive experiences that have become so familiar that your consciousness filters them out completely. The comfortable temperature in your home, the reliability of your transportation, the availability of your favorite foods, the presence of people who care about you. These aren't small things. This archaeological approach to gratitude works because it reveals genuinely surprising abundance, instead of trying to force appreciation for obvious blessings. When you discover something good that you'd forgotten was there, your brain responds with authentic gratitude instead of manufactured thankfulness. The most content people aren't necessarily those who have the most blessings. They're those who notice the most blessings. They've developed what psychologists call appreciative awareness. They've trained themselves to excavate hidden treasures of experience that others walk past without seeing. This isn't about positive thinking or pretending difficulties don't exist. This is about developing full spectrum awareness that includes both challenges and gifts. When you can see the complete picture of your experience, You operate from a foundation of abundance instead of scarcity. Here's what happens when you master gratitude archaeology. You start noticing extraordinary things hiding inside ordinary moments. You discover that you're actually living a life filled with small daily miracles that you'd simply stopped recognizing. Your baseline emotional state shifts from seeking what's missing to appreciating what's present. Here's technique number 6 out of 10 that will fundamentally shift your relationship with your daily experience. The gratitude archaeology twist works by consciously searching for 3 things you've been taking for granted that actually represent significant blessings in your life. Look for the invisible support systems, the quiet conveniences, and the background abundance that you've adapted to noticing. When you archaeologically uncover these hidden treasures of experience, you'll discover you've been living in abundance all along. Mental loading screen. Your brain is crashing every morning, and you don't even realize it's happening. The moment you wake up, you immediately demand peak performance from a system that hasn't finished booting up yet. It's like trying to run complex software on a computer that's still loading its operating system. The result is mental crashes, frozen thinking, and system errors that follow you throughout your entire day. Think about what happens when you turn on your computer. You don't immediately start running intensive programs while the system is still starting up. You wait for everything to load properly before demanding full performance. But with your brain, you expect instant access to complex thinking, emotional regulation, and decision-making capabilities the moment consciousness returns. Your mind has its own startup sequence that requires time and specific conditions to complete properly. During sleep, your brain processes information, consolidates memories, and clears metabolic waste. When you wake up, this biological computer needs time to transition from maintenance mode to performance mode. But most people skip this crucial loading period entirely. Here's what neuroscientists have discovered about your brain's morning startup sequence. Your prefrontal cortex, which handles complex thinking and decision-making, is the last system to come fully online. Your emotional centers and reactive systems boot up first. This is why you might feel anxious or overwhelmed in the morning, even when nothing is actually wrong. Your alarm systems are running, but your rational thinking systems are still loading. This creates a dangerous pattern. You make important decisions and set the tone for your entire day while operating with only partial cognitive capacity. It's like trying to navigate rush hour traffic while your GPS is still searching for satellites. You're moving forward, but you're not fully equipped for the journey ahead. Most people try to solve morning mental fog with stimulants like caffeine, but caffeine doesn't actually complete your brain startup sequence. It just forces your partially loaded system to run faster, which often leads to jittery energy without clear thinking. You're accelerating a system that hasn't finished initializing. Professional athletes understand the importance of progressive warm-up sequences. They don't immediately demand peak performance from cold muscles. They gradually increase intensity, allowing their physical systems to transition safely from rest to activity. Your brain needs the same respectful treatment. The most mentally sharp people have learned something that average people miss completely. They give their cognitive system time to boot up properly before demanding complex performance. They understand that rushing your brain's startup sequence creates system instability that affects everything you do afterward. Your brain's loading screen isn't empty time that needs to be filled with activity. It's essential processing time that determines how smoothly your mental software will run for the rest of the day. When you interrupt or skip this startup sequence, you're setting yourself up for mental glitches, emotional crashes, and cognitive errors. Here's the crucial insight that changes everything. You can optimize your brain's startup sequence, just like you can optimize a computer's boot time. By providing the right conditions and following the proper sequence, you can help your cognitive system come online faster and more reliably. This isn't about meditation or mindfulness in the traditional sense. This is about basic cognitive maintenance. Just like your computer runs better when you allow proper startup procedures, Your brain functions better when you respect its natural loading process. The progressive awakening sequence works because it matches your brain's natural transition from sleep consciousness to full awareness. Instead of jarring your system into activity, you're supporting its organic awakening process. This creates smooth, stable mental performance instead of choppy, unreliable cognitive function. Here's technique number 7 out of 10 that will eliminate morning mental fog forever. The mental loading screen method requires you to spend the first 3 minutes after waking in progressive awakening phases. Phase 1. Stay still and allow consciousness to fully return without demanding any complex thinking. Phase 2. Begin gentle movement while your brain continues loading background processes. Phase 3. Gradually engage your cognitive systems with simple, non-demanding activities. By respecting your brain's natural startup sequence, you'll have reliable access to your full mental capabilities all day long. Intention laser focus. You're setting yourself up for failure every single day, and it all starts with how you think about your day ahead. Most people set goals, make plans, and create to-do lists, but they completely skip the one thing that determines whether any of it will actually work. They forget to set their intention. This isn't just semantics. The difference between goals and intentions is the difference between forcing your way through life and flowing with unstoppable momentum. Goals are external targets that create pressure and resistance. Intentions are internal orientations that create magnetic pull and natural flow. When you set a goal, you're essentially declaring war on your current reality and trying to force it to change. When you set an intention, you're aligning yourself with the direction you want to move and allowing that alignment to guide your actions. Think about the last time you set a goal that felt heavy and overwhelming. Maybe it was to exercise more, eat healthier, or be more productive. Notice how just thinking about that goal created a subtle sense of pressure or resistance. That's because goals, by their very nature, create a gap between where you are and where you think you should be. This gap generates internal tension and makes everything feel like work. Now think about a time when you felt naturally drawn to do something positive. Maybe you felt inspired to help someone, create something, or learn something new. Notice how different that felt. There was no pressure, no resistance, just natural momentum carrying you forward. That's the power of intention-based living versus goal-based striving. Your brain responds completely differently to intentions versus goals. When you set a goal, your mind immediately starts calculating all the obstacles, requirements, and potential failures between you and that target. This activates your stress response and creates mental resistance. When you set an intention, your mind starts noticing opportunities, resources, and possibilities that align with that direction. This activates your creative faculties and generates natural motivation. Most people exhaust themselves trying to force outcomes instead of aligning with intentions. They push against resistance instead of following flow. They work harder instead of working in harmony with their natural energy patterns. This is why so many people burn out pursuing goals that should have energized them. Here's what intention researchers have discovered. When you operate from clear intention, your unconscious mind becomes your ally instead of your obstacle. Your brain starts filtering information and opportunities through the lens of your intention, bringing relevant possibilities to your conscious attention. You begin attracting circumstances that support your direction instead of fighting circumstances that resist your goals. The most effortlessly successful people understand something that strugglers miss completely. They don't try to control outcomes. They align with intentions and trust the process. They set their internal compass and then follow the magnetic pull instead of forcing predetermined routes. But here's where most people get confused about intentions. They think intentions are just softer, gentler goals. They're not. Intentions are fundamentally different because they focus on how you want to be and feel, rather than what you want to have or achieve. Goals are about destination. Intentions are about direction. When you set the intention to be more loving, Your day unfolds differently than when you set the goal to perform 3 acts of kindness. When you set the intention to operate from clarity, your decisions feel different than when you set the goal to make better choices. Intentions create a state of being that naturally generates aligned actions. This is why some people seem to effortlessly attract success, while others struggle despite working harder. The effortless ones are operating from clear intentions that create flow. The strugglers are operating from goals that create friction. Here's technique number 8 out of 10 that will transform struggle into flow. The intention laser focus practice starts with asking yourself one powerful question each morning. How do I want to feel and be today? Not what do I want to accomplish, but who do I want to embody? Then set that intention like a compass direction and trust it to guide your choices throughout the day. When you align with intention instead of forcing goals, you'll discover that the right actions arise naturally from the right state of being. Energy leak inspection. Right now your energy is draining away through invisible holes that you don't even know exist. Every morning, you start with a full tank of motivation and focus, but by noon, you're running on empty. You blame this on having too much to do or not getting enough sleep. But the real culprit is something much more fixable. You have energy leaks scattered throughout your routine that are quietly bleeding away your vitality. Think about a bucket with tiny holes in the bottom. No matter how much water you pour in, it never stays full because it's constantly leaking out through openings you can't see. Your daily energy works exactly the same way. You can drink all the coffee you want and try every motivation technique available. But if you don't seal the leaks, you'll always end up depleted. Most people focus on trying to generate more energy instead of stopping energy loss. It's like trying to fill a leaky bucket by pouring faster instead of plugging the holes. You can pour more coffee, more motivation, and more positive thinking into your system. But if energy is leaking out as fast as you're putting it in, you'll never get ahead. Here's what energy research reveals about these invisible drains. The average person loses approximately 60% of their daily energy to unconscious leaks before they even realize what's happening. These aren't major disasters or dramatic problems. These are tiny, seemingly insignificant habits and patterns that compound throughout the day. Your phone is probably your biggest energy vampire, but not in the way you think. It's not just the time you spend scrolling. It's the constant micro-interruptions that fragment your attention and force your brain to restart complex thinking processes dozens of times per day. Each restart costs cognitive energy, and those costs add up to massive drain over time. But phone interruptions are just one type of energy leak. You're also losing vitality to unfinished mental conversations, unresolved tensions with other people, cluttered physical spaces, and unconscious worry loops. Each of these creates a background program running in your mind that consumes mental resources without producing any value. Most people live with so many energy leaks that they've forgotten what it feels like to operate from a full tank. They think feeling drained and scattered is just part of adult life. They don't realize they're living with the psychological equivalent of severe anemia, constantly operating from depletion instead of abundance. Professional performers in any field understand the critical importance of energy conservation. They don't just focus on peak performance, they obsess over energy efficiency. They identify and eliminate anything that wastes precious energy resources because they know that conservation is just as important as generation. The most energetic people aren't necessarily those who have more energy sources. They're those who have fewer energy drains. They've learned to identify and seal the small leaks that most people never notice. They operate with energy efficiency that allows them to sustain high performance without burning out. Here's the breakthrough insight that changes everything. You don't need more energy sources, you need fewer energy sinks. When you plug the leaks in your energy system, your natural vitality returns automatically. You don't have to generate more motivation. You just have to stop unconsciously wasting the motivation you already have. This morning inspection process works because most energy leaks operate below the threshold of conscious awareness. You don't notice them individually. The cumulative effect is devastating to your daily vitality. And you systematically identify and address these drains. You reclaim energy you didn't even realize you were losing. Here's technique number 9 out of 10 that will restore your natural energy levels. The energy leak inspection routine involves scanning 3 key areas each morning. First, check for mental leaks. Unfinished thoughts, unresolved concerns, or background worry loops that are consuming processing power. Second, identify emotional leaks, lingering tensions, unexpressed feelings, or relationship issues that are draining emotional energy. Third, spot environmental leaks, cluttered spaces, disorganized systems, or inefficient routines that force you to waste energy on simple tasks. Spend 2 minutes each morning identifying your biggest energy leak for that day. Then take one small action to reduce that drain. Present moment anchor. Your mind is a time traveler that's never actually here, and it's stealing your life one moment at a time. Right now, while you're listening to these words, part of your consciousness is probably replaying yesterday's conversations, rehearsing tomorrow's presentations, or wandering through some imagined scenario that exists nowhere except in your thoughts. You're physically present, but mentally absent, and this split attention is exhausting you in ways you don't even realize. Think about the last time you were completely absorbed in an activity. Maybe you are having an engaging conversation, working on a creative project, or enjoying a beautiful sunset. Notice how energized and alive you felt during those moments. That wasn't because the activity itself was magical. That was because your mind was fully present. Instead of scattered across multiple timelines, your brain consumes approximately 20% of your body's total energy. When your attention is scattered across multiple timelines, you're essentially running several mental programs simultaneously, which multiplies your energy consumption without producing any useful output. It's like having dozens of browser tabs open on your computer. Each one uses resources, and together they slow down your entire system. Most people live in what psychologists call temporal displacement. They are mentally residing in past regrets or future anxieties, while their actual life is happening in the present moment. This creates a strange phenomenon where you can be completely exhausted from thinking about things that aren't even real, while missing opportunities and experiences that are actually occurring right now. Your past exists only in memory, which is notoriously unreliable and constantly changing based on your current emotional state. Your future exists only in imagination, which is usually based more on fears and hopes than realistic probabilities. The only timeline that actually exists is this present moment, yet it's the one place your mind rarely chooses to be. This temporal displacement creates a vicious cycle of mental fatigue. When you're not fully present, you miss important information and subtle cues from your current environment. This forces you to work harder to understand situations, make decisions, and connect with people. You're essentially trying to navigate real life with partial attention, which requires extra energy to compensate for reduced awareness. The most successful and content people share one remarkable trait. They've learned to anchor their attention in the present moment, instead of letting it drift into past or future timelines. They understand that presence isn't just a spiritual practice. It's a practical performance enhancement that dramatically improves their effectiveness and reduces their mental fatigue. But here's where most mindfulness advice gets it wrong. They tell you to be present, without giving you a reliable method for actually staying present when your mind inevitably starts wandering. They treat presence like a state you should naturally maintain, instead of a skill that requires specific techniques and consistent practice. Your breath is the most powerful anchor available because it only exists in the present moment. You can't breathe yesterday's air or tomorrow's air. Each breath is happening right now, which makes it a perfect focal point for present moment awareness. But most people breathe unconsciously and miss this built-in opportunity for presence practice. When you anchor your attention to your breathing pattern, something remarkable happens. Your scattered mental energy consolidates into focused awareness. Instead of running multiple timeline programs simultaneously, your mind operates from a single, concentrated point of attention. This creates immediate mental clarity and sustained energy throughout your day. Professional meditators aren't more present because they're more disciplined or spiritual. They're more present because they've learned specific techniques for anchoring their attention in the current moment. They understand that presence is a trainable skill, not a personality trait or lucky accident. Here's technique number 10 out of 10 that will end mental time traveling forever. The present moment anchor technique uses a specific breathing pattern that keeps your attention tethered to now throughout your entire day. Breathe in for 4 counts while focusing completely on the sensation of air entering your body. Hold for 4 counts while noticing the pause between breaths. Breathe out for 6 counts while feeling the air leaving your system. This 4-4-6 pattern creates an attention anchor that automatically brings your mind back to the present moment whenever it starts drifting into past regrets or future worries. You now have 10 powerful techniques that can transform your mornings and revolutionize your entire daily. It's not about knowing these techniques. It's about implementing them consistently until they become automatic parts of your morning routine. Start with just one technique that resonated most strongly with you. Master that single practice for 1 week before adding another. Your brain responds better to gradual implementation than dramatic overhauls that last only a few days before being abandoned. Remember, the goal isn't perfection. The goal is progress. Some mornings you'll execute these techniques flawlessly, and other mornings you'll barely remember to try them. Both experiences are normal and valuable parts of building new habits. The most important thing to understand is that you're not broken, and you don't need fixing. You already possess everything required to feel energized, motivated, and clear every morning. These techniques simply help you access and activate the natural capabilities that stress, distraction, and unconscious habits have been covering up. Your morning routine sets the energetic and emotional tone for everything that follows. When you start your day with intention, presence, and clarity, that foundation supports better decisions, stronger relationships, and more meaningful accomplishments throughout your entire day. The tired, unmotivated version of yourself doesn't have to be your permanent reality. It's just been your default setting because you didn't know how to reprogram it. Now you do. Your transformed mornings are waiting for you to begin.